Hey guys, welcome back to the video. In this video, we're going to be talking about the Illuminati and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Warning, this video will be containing massive spoilers for the entire movie. Before we get into it, if you guys are new in here, make sure that subscribe button notification on so you don't miss any time I upload a video or go live. Also, check out all of my other Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness content in the description down below. But this is one thing I've been hearing a lot all over Twitter, TikTok, everywhere that you can find Doctor Strange content. I've been hearing that people didn't like the Illuminati, and I'm not going to say that they were the best thing in the world, but there are a lot of caveats to this entire sequence, the entire Illuminati thing, the entire thing of basically getting to the Book of Vishanti. So if you guys didn't know, basically the entirety of the second act was reshot, and that means basically everything to get to the Book of Vishanti was reshot when they did those like 6 to 8 months of reshoots. Now this makes complete sense because into getting the Book of Vishanti, you can really do whatever story you want. There just has to be something that opens to the gateway of the Book of Vishanti. It doesn't matter what happens. I think what they were trying to do is, number one, it's called Multiverse of Madness. The rest of the movie didn't really have any Multiverse of Madness in terms of just other characters, a bunch of crazy cameos and stuff like that. So I felt like they threw it in this movie, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. Personally, I don't think the cameos were bad, but I will say that the impact wasn't there as much as I wanted it to be. The cameos weren't bad, like I said before. You know, we had Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, Black Bolt, Mr. Fantastic, and Professor X. I definitely think that Peggy Carter was like the most underrated one out of all of these. I don't like her in What If, really. I'm not a fan of her. You know, there's a lot of Peggy Carter haters out there for Captain Britain. I'm just not a fan of her either. But in this movie, her death scene was actually fairly cool. I like the action, but again, it just felt like Captain America. And that's one thing, is like a lot of these deaths didn't really feel creative, especially the Captain Marvel one. Like, I understand when Wanda was like blasting her, she was taking away her powers, taking away her strength, all of her abilities, and then she died being crushed by a statue. It was just very underwhelming. But I will say the Professor X, Black Bolt, and Miss Fantastic kills were absolutely awesome in my opinion. The Black Bolt one was so gruesome, and I'm gonna be honest, after that reflection fight where Wanda basically crawled out of that bong, or I think that's what it's called, where she was like crawling out upside down like a zombie, that was insane. And after that point in the movie, I was like, okay, this movie is gonna be absolutely absurd. They're gonna have some crazy horror moments here, and Black Bolt basically exploding his brain was awesome. Mr. Fantastic's death to me did feel the most rushed out of everyone. I think Black Bolt, since it was the first one, it felt a little bit more cool. It felt like more abrupt. That made sense. But I definitely felt like after Black Bolt, they should have made the fight just a little bit longer. But I kind of understand if they couldn't, because everything felt really rushed in the entirety of the battle. Now, before I get into talking a little bit more about the cameos themselves, I do want to say that the acting from all of them, all of the cameos, even Professor X, it was not like good at all. Even John Krasinski. I'll go into John Krasinski later because I do want to talk about him in the Fantastic Four movie, like the actual one that Marvel is doing, because I still want him and I do have a pretty decent reason for it. But back to my complaint about the acting, literally everyone felt so static, and I'm going to be honest, it literally just felt like they said, okay, say your lines so we can get you out of here, and then finish reshooting this movie so we can get to editing. That's what all of that felt like, and it was very underwhelming in that sense. First watch, I didn't really notice it because I was caught up in the hype, but I definitely noticed the second watch, and I also noticed that when they were on Titan, it was probably some of the worst CGI in the entire MCU. It didn't hinder the movie that much per se because it was such a little part of it, but it was just such bad CG. I'm glad that it wasn't like kind of representative of our actual MCU. It was just like a little flashback thing, but it was very hard to watch. It did look like something made in the early 2000s. The compositing just wasn't good, and they were all just definitely in a blue screen room. All of the close-up shots looked very bad. The overhead shots weren't the worst, but definitely the close-up shots were really just not it. But again, I understand the whole context around it because of reshoots and because of all of these external factors going into it. So that's why I'm not like really detracting from the entire movie. But I will say the entire second act being reshot, we don't know exactly what reason it is, but again, like I said in the beginning of this video, it makes sense because again, all you have to do is get to the Book of Vishanti, and in the Book of Vishanti itself, it was in the basement of the Illuminati thing. So literally all they had to do was go to a place that had a door in the basement, and you can make any setting out of that. They probably had some like super crazy thing. Maybe they wanted to tone it down. Maybe Sam Raimi wanted to tone it down later when he had the opportunity in order to let this story focus a little bit more on Strange. I also do wonder a lot if Christine Palmer, the 813, I think that's the one, not the 616, the other Christine Palmer that we saw, I wonder if she was prominent in the entire rest of the story, second act and on, whenever they initially shot the movie, or if she was done through reshoots, because she was in the final battle where we had the Strange versus Strange music fight and stuff like that, but she was only in a few of those scenes. A lot of those scenes were just regular regular shots of Sinister Strange or our 616 Doctor Strange. So it would make sense if that was part of reshoots and they kind of just added her in there. You know, even shots when her and Sinister Strange are in the same area, that's just like a big wide shot when he falls and then he gets stabbed by the gate. So that could have been another thing added in post as well. But now I do want to move on to talk about John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic. We saw him on the big screen. Not many people liked him. His acting was underwhelming. He didn't really just fit the character of Mr. Fantastic. And a lot of my friends have been saying the same thing, and I completely understand. But personally, I'm still on the train for him. And the reason for this is, number one, this again was all reshot. It feels like all of it was rushed. And again, it feels like every single one of the actors acted the exact same. That is not normally how John Krasinski acts, and you can watch any of the Quiet Place movies to get that from it. I do think that there are a few other castings that we could do. For example, I think Steven Yeun would be great. I think Dev Patel would be great. And if you guys want a full Fantastic Four fan cast, I would love to make that video because Fantastic Four is my most anticipated future Marvel movie. But with that being said, again, Mr. Fantastic, John Krasinski, I do think that John Krasinski can still play a good one. Number one, the mannerisms of Mr. Fantastic in a different universe could still be completely different, like Sinister Strange as well as Defender Strange. There are like two completely different characters that just look the same. Defender Strange was about to take America Chavez's powers, and he acted completely different than our Strange when at the end he didn't end up taking her powers. So in my opinion, you know, they could be completely different characters, and I think it could still work. Again, I think this all comes back to reshoots. I think that if this was maybe initially in the movie and maybe John Krasinski just got a call, it's like, oh, we're reshooting, we're getting some cameos, you want to be Mr. Fantastic, you're a big fan cast. And I definitely see that with the reception. I don't even know if he's going to be John Krasinski in the MCU anymore, but again, it's always up to interpretation and honestly up to whatever Kevin Feige wants to do in the moment, because Loki in every universe is different, but there's still that one variant of him that looks the same, President Loki. Same thing with Doctor Strange. Every variant of Doctor Strange looks the same from what we have seen, but there could be universes where he looks different. Same with Kang the Conqueror. There's just infinite possibilities in the multiverse, so they could choose to use him, they could choose not to use him. I'm pretty sure they could just use social media reactions and tell that people don't really want him. I will say though, if we compare the original Mr. Fantastic to this John Krasinski Mr. Fantastic, that granted only got 3 minutes of screen time while the other one had 2 whole movies, I would still take the original Mr. Fantastic from the early 2000s movies just because I actually personally enjoy those movies. I don't think they're that bad. But again, I do think it's just a matter of all of this being reshoots. I think the Illuminati as a whole, I don't think they were overall underwhelming. I thought they were utilized well in the movie, but you can definitely tell that it was a last minute addition, and the fact that this movie is so short makes it feel like such a huge and essential part, when in reality you could have just switched out any different storytelling point in order to get Wanda and Strange and America Chavez and that Christine Palmer to the Book of Ashanti. I will also say I did like the Illuminati thing because Wanda did feel like a massive threat after it, but I will also say the fight was just a little bit too short. Again, like I mentioned before with the Black Bolt thing, after Black Bolt died, I definitely felt like they should have taken a little bit more time with the fight. I felt like the Peggy Carter and Captain Marvel things, they were paced really, really well, but John Krasinski's, it was so quick. It was actually insane. I also think the deaths were definitely very creative, and I enjoyed how they did it. I enjoyed how everything played out, but again, I think it could have been slowed down, and definitely they should have taken a little bit more time with it because it did just feel overall rushed. You could tell it was a reshoot. People might not be able to tell the entire Illuminati thing was a reshoot because it kind of merged into the movie pretty well, but the Titan flashback, that itself definitely felt like something that was added in last minute. But yeah guys, those are all my thoughts on the Illuminati and Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I really liked them in this movie, but you could definitely tell that it was very, very rushed. Let me know what you guys think of the Illuminati in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.